So speaking of that, I think that everyone knew individuals were buying. I think that there had been a lot of focus on financial institutions, kind of Wall Street showing up. I actually think we have really bad short-term memories. Not that many people were ready for corporations in 2020 and into 2021, but that has happened in a much faster clip than I thought. Was previously expected. Anyone who would have claimed in the beginning of 2020 that within a year Tesla would be buying $1.5 billion of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, I think would be absolutely nuts. And I think from there, what you end up getting is the final question, which is, what about the central banks, right? So we have individuals, we have financial institutions, we have corporations. That next big inflection point is a central bank, or many central banks doing this. I think your opinion is that it is inevitable, but is that actually inevitable? Why do you think that? And kind of what is the timeline that you think is most reasonable when evaluating?
Yeah, Tesla is a great example of just the second step in that game of musical chairs, right? Sailor buys 1.3 billion at the time. I think it was 1.3. Tesla buys 1.5. Right, so I think those numbers are closely related for a reason, right? Saying like, how much should we buy? And Tesla's treasurer or CFO saying, well, how much did the other guy buy? About 1.3. Let's buy 1.5. So that, as silly as it sounds, I think that's actually how a lot of this game will be played out. In terms of the timing of central bank purchase, it is so impossible to say, and I know it's kind of a cop-out, but the digital age, if it has proven anything to us, it is that the exponential change it has brought about is so holistically unfathomable how fast it can be. We've gone from, in the past 20 years, from the internet, say 25 years, the internet is a joke, to everything's on the internet now, everything, right? Everything we do. And not only that, the internet also is in our pocket now, the fully baked internet. We're not talking about the little Nokia flip phone with a mediocre browser. It's a supercomputer now in our pocket. And it's only getting faster. So I really am increasingly of the belief that we are in a Renaissance-like event. Like, the world will look back on this period in history as a major mega political transition from an analog age into a digital age, right? In the same way we look back at the transition from the agricultural age to the industrial age, for instance. And all of the institutions that served us in the past, right? If we think, just looking at the central bank itself, the structure of the central bank is characterized by the money, right? So the money is upstream of everything. The reason we have a central bank, frankly, is because gold is expensive to secure, and it's heavy, and it's hard to move across space. So we had a great tool that was selected on the marketplace for holding its value across time, which was gold. Gold became kind of globally dominant money, but it constricted our ability to scale economic activity because it's hard, it's very expensive to transact it across space. And for a world becoming characterized by globalized trade, if you imagine that we had to actually ship gold around the world for every transaction, it kind of points towards how self-defeating and how expensive that would be. So the central bank emerged as the ultimate custodian of gold, and it issued paper currency to augment the lack of portability in gold. So now we have this large custodian that centrally manages the gold and issues paper backed by it. But with this custody model came the requirement to trust the central bank that they won't abuse the money supply, right? That they'll always maintain a one-to-one peg between currency and gold. And clearly that trust, if nothing else defines the history of banking, is that trust is violated repeatedly. So in a way, it's as if Gold is the game we've always been playing. You know, we could say that another way to think about this is that the common misconception today is that governments are the originators of money. Governments issue money, but that's not actually true. What money emerges when we have property rights, basically. So when we, in the agricultural age, when we started creating savings in the form of grain, capital, etc., to protect that capital, the protection service was the government. So it's the local group that specialized in violence that protected you from other specialists in violence to protect those savings. So money, government actually emerges from money. Basically, once we have property and savings, the government emerges as a protection service for those savings. The type of money we have, again, has shaped the institutions we have today. So we've got gold leading to the central bank. And the question now becomes, we've been playing this one game, everyone's trying to accumulate as much money as possible across history. That led to gold becoming the most dominant money in the world. The question now becomes 5,000-year-old tech, gold, 12-year-old tech, Bitcoin, a digital disruptor to the only game we've ever been playing, the original governor of human action, if you will. Money is the governor of human action, not government. It's whoever holds the gold makes the rules, as the old axiom goes. This, I think, Bitcoin, what makes it so interesting is that it is the latest and greatest testament to the disruptive potential of the digital age. We've already seen digital age totally upend, say, the media landscape, the advertising landscape, taxis, ride sharing, like you name the industry, it's been impacted more or less severely by digital technology. But at the pinnacle of this recurrent analog institution disruption, the largest and most dominant in the world is the central bank, which is premised on gold. And now we have this digital tool disrupting it from the bottom up, right? It's disrupting gold, which then upends the central bank model, makes it irrelevant. And the $100 trillion question, so to speak, is what are they going to do about it? What are they going to do? It's increasingly obvious that most attack vectors on Bitcoin just will not work to stop it outright. There's, in all of the thinking that's been done about Bitcoin, no one has identified a credible unilateral attack vector that could take down the network. I mean, the analogous question is, how do you shut down the internet worldwide forever? It's not even good enough to shut it down for just a day. You need to shut it down permanently, everywhere. So short of like a super global catastrophe, there's not a lot that can be done to stop the internet. Therefore, there's not a lot that can be done to stop Bitcoin. So then the question becomes, what are they going to do to adapt to this new reality? And as I've argued in a lot of my writing, it's kind of like the old, I think it was Gandhi that maybe said this, but who knows? I read it on the internet, so it might be wrong. First they laugh at you, then they fight you, then they adopt to whatever.
First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
That's right, exactly. So Bitcoin's going through that progression, essentially. And I think we may be somewhere at the fight stage, maybe kind of coming out of Bitcoin's honeymoon period. Maybe they do attempt to increase regulatory hostility towards Bitcoin at the endpoints, exchanges and custodians and other venues, which points to the importance of always holding your own keys. But I think Bitcoin survives that because, again, the network will survive that. There's government doesn't have any mechanisms that can really jeopardize the network itself. They can sort of just impact the consumer endpoints. So when we get beyond the fight stage, that's when I think they just start acquiring it as a means of insurance against its success. You already hear rumors about Venezuela doing this. They're selling passports for Bitcoin. You hear rumors about countries in the Middle East actually monetizing some of their energy there with Bitcoin mining. also using it as a means to circumvent US sanctions. So there are all of these sources of demand for Bitcoin that no government can eradicate. And I think the first central bank that publicly discloses the purchase of Bitcoin is just going to heat this thing up to a level of game theory that we can't even imagine. Because then you're running the same calculus, but at a level where not only do they have the largest balance sheets in the world, but they can also just print money and buy the thing. So that's when I expect escape velocity for Bitcoin to be achieved.